Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. It's the first time in the year where you get that combination of the chance of some decent weather and time. Time in the garden to really get things done. And for me, the personal connotations of Easter are to do with my childhood, because we always went to the woods to collect primroses to decorate the church. And I loved the woods then. I loved the way they were bursting with flower. And I've always tried to incorporate those woodland plants into any garden I've made. But none of the plants in my childhood were as spectacular as these amazing imperial fritillaries. This week, Carol is returning to our budding gardeners, Dan and Dominique, to help them with the next stage of their garden transformation, which is choosing trees and shrubs for structure.
Isn't it exciting? First proper plant in your garden.
Yeah, and he looks great.
Yeah.
And Joe visits a remarkable quarry garden in Staffordshire that was badly hit by the storms this winter and is now racing to get ready in time to open to the public this Easter Sunday.
I like my spade, what's left of it.
Yeah, you've had that a while, haven't you?
No, I just work on rock.
And I should be planting up a difficult east-facing wall and also sowing my beans, which, as well as tasting good, will look good too. First, I'm going to refresh the spring garden. You may remember that last winter I took out the hornbeam hedge that ran all the way along it. And this has opened it out to the light. Plants are now growing with more vigour, and also, obviously, opened it out to the eye. What was a closed wall, the back of the border, is now the front. So that's what I want to start planting up initially. And I'm going to put in these Tiarella iron butterfly. It's a woodland plant from North America and has got these spikes of white flowers touched with pink. Now, they will grow perfectly well in shade, and this will get much more shady when the limes come fully into leaf. But they do need a fairly rich soil, so they do not like dry shade. That's no good, and if you put them in dry shade, they'll just disappear. I'm going to put a little group of 3. So let's dig out a block. I'm going to give them some leaf mould. And the beauty of leaf mould is it's not necessarily nutrition, but it gives really good root run. It's light, but it also holds moisture. So just a couple of handfuls in underneath. Of course, if you don't have leaf mould, then garden compost will do the job. I just take it out. That's a nice plant, got a nice fibrous root system. By choosing plants that come from woodlands and putting them in what is essentially a woodland setup, you know they're going to be at home. You know that once they've found their feet, which should happen very quickly, you can just leave them to get on with it. And I do think that's half the secret of any successful gardening, is just choose the right plant for the right place. The second plant I'm going to put in is very different. This is Clematis alpina, Pamela Jackman. And the great thing about Clematis alpina is it's tough. It will take temperatures down to -30 odd. It doesn't mind cold wind. This end of the spring garden used to be like a dark tunnel, because of course, if you can imagine, the hedge came down this line, and by May the light was all out of it. But now I've opened it out, there's more light, you can see back better, you can see down better, so I want an end piece here. And I know from experience that once it gets going, it'll climb up the tree and then the flowers will cascade down. So perfect. Right, take out as much soil as I can. So I've got a nice deep hole, and I'm going to put some compost in. And it doesn't have to be your best garden compost. Just get some organic matter in below the clematis. And these early flowering clematis tend not to suffer from wilt, but as with all clematis, any doubt, plant it deeper rather than shallow. So you could plant it so that it's buried up to about that point. And so if it does get wilt or damaged, it will regrow from the stem that is below the ground. get down in there. Pop that in. Flowers appear at the end of March in the south, middle of April in the north, and will carry on for about 3 weeks with this glorious spring blue display. I shall use the rest of the compost to mulch around this. And it's worth giving a clematis, especially a new one, a good soak at least once a month for the first year after planting. And of course, I'll water the tiarella too. Now, to get inspiration for your garden, Joe has been to visit a garden in Staffordshire, which is busily getting ready for its opening.
Stonehill Quarry Garden opens to the public to raise money for charity. But it's been a real uphill struggle to get it ready in time. The recent storms wreaked havoc and there's still a mountain of work to do. Undeterred, Caroline Raymond is soldiering on and trying to use this force of nature to her advantage.
So, Caroline, how bad were the winds ripping through here then?
Horrendous and destructive. And I was really despondent about it.
Caroline lost a number of trees. Some have been completely uprooted. Others have had to be made safe, and some felled altogether.
What are you going to do with these trees?
Well, the cedar's going to stay as a sculpture. This tree here is left for the visitors to see what it's like on a quarry garden and how much stone there is and how poor the soil is for anything else to grow.
So, are you behind this year in your gardening calendar?
Yes, I am, very much so. I've got a lot of borders to do and clearing and digging holes to put the plants in.
Because your opening for the Yellow Book is imminent, I believe.
Yes, yes it is.
Do you need a hand?
Yes, please.
When Caroline moved here with her late husband 23 years ago, there was virtually nothing here. Even now, it's a constant work in progress.
This is just amazing. It's magical, isn't it? You'd never know it was here.
No, but wonderful.
So this was a quarry. It was a stone quarry, and you've turned it into a garden.
Yes.
There are lots of well-known spring flowering plants here, such as primroses, hellebores, and erythroniums. But there are also some more unusual ones.
These woodland spring plants are really loving the conditions here, aren't they?
They are. I'm very lucky about that, actually, because not many people have got all of this leaf mould.
No, no, you've got plenty. You're going to have plenty more by the time you finish this.
But such as that plant is Cardamine pentaphilos.
Yeah, it's a beauty, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And the little yellow anemone next to it, which is Lipsiensis.
I really like that. I mean, they're quite unusual, those two. What about that one over there? There's something under the tree over there. I can see it's like a variegated leaf. It's really brightening up that shady spot.
Oh, yes. Haquetia.
Haquetia.
And the variegated one is called Thor.
Is that easy to grow?
Yes, yes, it is. But again, in these conditions.
And you love your trilliums,
Yes,
don't you?
I do.
What is
very
it about
much.
trilliums?
I think it's the structure, the mottled leaves on most of them, the colours, the way they're so upright and really quite regal.
Caroline looks after this impressive 6-acre garden almost single-handedly. It's a race against time for her to open on Sunday, so I'm more than happy to help. Nothing goes to waste here. Caroline has even found a way to make use of her fallen trees.
So this is great, isn't it? You're using the old birch logs here
Yes, that's right.
and then backfilling it with soil behind.
Because of the lack of depth.
Well, yeah, because here
That's right.
is
So
your
there.
rock. So you're just creating, well, they're like raised beds, but they work perfectly with the natural setting here. Shall I just start popping some hellebores in then?
Yes, please.
Yeah?
Thank you.
It must be quite tough gardening in these conditions, though.
It is. It's that's why I like my spade. What's left of it.
Yeah, you've had that a while, haven't you? But is
No, I just work on rock.
Right, I might need to get the pickaxe out. I have to say that a disused quarry is not the first place you'd think of to make a garden in. But Caroline has shown that with a lot of hard work, you can make something really special. Well, Caroline, I hope I've been of some use. The visitors to this garden are going to absolutely love it, I know. I hope the sun shines. Bye.
Right. This is an east-facing wall. Now, east-facing walls are cold and fairly shady. They just get the morning sun, and that's it. Not many fruits will like a shady wall because they need sunshine to ripen. But there's one that actively likes a north or an east wall, and that's a morello cherry. That's the sour cherry that you need to cook. And that's what I'm going to plant initially against this wall. I'm putting up these wires because I'm going to fan train it. And the wires are for the canes that will support the fans to tie to. I've put in strainers. And it's important to use these strainers because it means you can tighten it. When you're planting against a wall, inevitably there'll be footings. That's concrete underneath the ground that will be wider than the wall. So always plant at least a couple of feet away from the wall. Doesn't sound good. It seems to be a day for rock gardens. Well, if Joe can use a pickaxe, so can I. That's not too bad. Let's get a shovel. I think that's enough. But the good thing is that's soil, that's subsoil, and the roots will go into it and the water will drain away. The cherry, by the way, is this. Bought partially pre-trained. It's a morello cherry grafted onto a colt rootstock. And if you're going to have a fan-trained cherry, as opposed to an open bush type, make sure that it is on colt rootstock, because that stops it getting too big. So if we take this over to the hole, you can see that I will plant that roughly like that. And then I'll train it back into the wires. But first of all, I need to prepare the planting hole. Add a little bit of compost, not too much, because otherwise it acts as a sponge for all the water. And just potting compost isn't going to be good enough. This is a tree. It's going to be in the ground for 10, 20, 30 years. So add to peat-free potting compost, garden soil if you've got it, garden compost, some leaf mould. I've added all three. But really importantly, add some drainage. I've got grit in this. It must be free draining. That will settle. So I want to plant it at the back of the hole. Don't want to be too far out because there's a path, but that's about right. The reason why fruit is grown as a fan or a cordon or an espalier is because of the relationship between growth of the plant and production of fruit. You get maximum growth of the tree vertically. That's why you have a leader. So the leader is always the tallest and it wants to grow on up. But you get maximum fruit horizontally, which is why espaliers, for example, are a very good way of getting a lot of fruit in a small space. But if you want a plant to grow strong and healthily and have fruit, the answer is to go halfway between the two and go at 45 degrees. And that's where a fan comes in, because all the branches are more or less trained at 45 degrees across a wall space. Now, there is a little bit of pruning to do, because if I leave this central leader, that will go on up and up and up at the expense of the growth of the branches below it, because it actively suppresses them. I think I'm going to cut there, and that shoot will become two more 45-degree fans. So we cut like that and remove it. Now, the wires are to support the canes, not the plant. So that's the basic structure of the support, and you can see how you want these main stems to grow. Then you tie in the plant to the fan supports. We're establishing a fruiting tree that will give us lovely sour cherries, which are great for jam or puddings. Beautiful blossom, all on a shady, cold wall. And this is where morellos are absolutely fantastic. Well, there we are. That's another job done. Now, Carol has been back to visit Dominique and Dan to help them in the year-long process of transforming their garden.
I'm helping a young family in Gloucestershire create their first family garden. They started with a blank canvas and they've got a plan. Next to the house, they want a patio area for entertaining, a lawn to relax on surrounded with beautiful flowers, and a productive veg plot. Since my last visit, when we laid the lawn, they've been busy improving their soil with well-rotted manure, repairing trellis, and their neighbour has replaced a dilapidated boundary fence. Now things get really exciting. It's time for plants. Dom's local garden centre is the perfect place to start. The first plants to choose when planning any garden are plants for structure. They play an important role, giving year-round height, colour and interest. A backbone around which to build the rest of the garden. I think the most structural thing you can have in your gardens is a tree.
We've got a lot of fencing, haven't we?
Yeah.
So anything that pushes above it would be rather nice.
And goes up to the sky.
Yeah.
So the smaller your garden, the more important it is that you've got a tree that's really going to work for you. So you want something that's great in the spring, wonderful through the summer and into the autumn. Preferably, you know, with blossom first, with fruit, with good autumn colour. I mean, cherries are so very, very pretty in the spring. But there are a few trees that'll give you even more than that. How about these? These are both crab apples.
They look beautiful.
But look what you're going to get later on, these gorgeous sort of red and yellow crab apples. And this one has pure red fruit, red sentinel. And sentinel means it's quite an upright tree.
Which would work really well in our garden.
So look at your trees, first of all. Just give them the old once-over. This is grafted onto a rootstock here, but just above it, look at that.
OK.
There's damage, so that's a bit of a no-no. Whereas something like this...
I have to say, I really love the idea of the red fruit.
So what do you think about that? Has it got loads of buds on?
It's great.
Masses and masses of buds. What do you think?
That's the one, let's go for it, yeah. Definitely, first plant.
Dom's got space for one more tree, so we're going for a rowan. It gives flowers, tons of berries, and good autumn colour. Another way of getting structure into your garden is shrubs. Something like this. I mean...
These look fantastic. The colours are great on them.
These are all forms of cornus. That's a form of our native one, Cornus alba, but this is called midwinter fire, and that's exactly what it does. It glows right the way through the winter.
You immediately go to that one because actually it seems to have an even spread out from the bottom.
Yeah, and don't be afraid when you're buying something like this to actually take it out of its pot.
Oh, crikey, right.
And inspect its roots, because the roots are the most important part of the plant, really. Okay. And that's got good roots. It's not pot-bound.
If it was pot-bound, it would just, you'd see a lot more roots around the edge? Or?
Yeah, you wouldn't see any soil. And there's no moss or anything on the top. So it's fresh, it's been looked after, it's thriving. When choosing plants in the garden centre, always go for the healthiest looking stock. Check for strong, thick stems, plenty of new growth and disease-free leaves. And if it's a flowering plant, there should be loads of buds still waiting to open. Now it's back to the garden to get planting.
Can we rotate it clockwise, just about 45 degrees, a little bit more?
How's that?
It's great, yeah.
Now, when you're planting a tree, modern thinking is that you should make a shallow hole, it's called saucer planting, that at the top of your you know, where this joins the soil stays at the same level right across the whole, but it encourages the roots then to go outwards, which is what you want from your tree. Normally, you might think about teasing the roots out, but I think that these roots are just raring to go.
Right.
And also, the less disturbance your tree gets, the better, especially when it's about to start flowering. Woo! Isn't it exciting? Just a very gentle sort of heel in. Oh, very tentative. Absolutely lovely.
I'm nervous.
Normally, when you put any tree in, you'd stake it. But I think this is such a sheltered corner.
We should be okay.
Yeah. So first proper plant in your garden.
Yeah, and he looks great.
Yeah, what a plant too. What's next? Come on.
Cornice.
Cornice.
Or dogwood, I would say. Cornice,
Right.
I'm learning. Cornice.
Cornice, dogwood, both correct. We've set our 3 shrubs about 2 feet apart. They'll give permanent height through the centre of this border. Planting most shrubs, the idea there is always to get them level with the soil.
Yep.
But with cornice, it's a suckering shrub, and what you want it to do is produce lots and lots of those red stems. You give it a flying start, you plant it deep. Now the structure is in place and we've watered everything really well, it's time to start thinking about flowers. To get Dom and Dan started, I've brought them one of my favourites, Geranium silestemon from my own garden. This clump can be divided to create over a dozen plants. I've encouraged Dan and Dom to see what other perennials they can get from friends or neighbours and to heel them into their nursery bed. Next time I'm here, we can take stock of what they've gathered together and start planting those borders.
One of my own favourite trees for a small garden is this cherry, Taihaiku. It can be quite fickle in its flowering because it's very easily damaged by heavy wind or heavy rain. But this year, it's fantastic. It's looking as good as it ever has done. It is lovely to have a bit of time to stop and just look at things. But there are jobs to be done. And here are some you can be getting on with this weekend. A few weeks ago, I recommended that you pot up your dahlias to encourage shoots for cutting material. Well, now that material should be ready. Take a plant with plenty of shoots and choose just 2 or 3, cutting them off as near to the tubers as you can. Strip off the lower leaves and pot them up in a free-draining compost. Put them somewhere warm to root. And the parent can be put in a sheltered place to grow on until it's ready to plant out. Hardy annuals can be sown directly where they are to grow. Now, you can mark the spot by making them in crosses, circles or lines, or you can do as I'm doing with these poppies, just broadcast them in a border. Spread them where you want, rake them in, and let them grow up at random, and surprise and hopefully delight you later in summer. Late flowering clematis are putting on a mass of new growth at this time of year and not necessarily attaching themselves securely. So tie them into the support with soft twine until they get strong enough to attach and support themselves. Good boy. This way, here. Nigel, come on. No, I need the string. Nigel, I need it. And go. One of the jobs I really like at this time of the year is building a structure to support climbing beans. They need a really good wigwam or line that will take the weight of them. But it should look good too, and if you build it now, it's in place for when the beans are ready to need them, which won't be for another month or so. This year, I thought, because we're in a cottage garden, I'd continue the rhythm of the wigwams right around the whole of the garden. So some of them will have clematis, some of them will have climbing beans, some of them will have sweet peas, all decorative, some of them tasty. One goes in like that. Now, this ground has been composted and rotivated, so it's really rich. But if your soil is a bit light or it hasn't had much attention, you do need to enrich it. Beans are greedy, thirsty plants. You cannot give them too much organic material underneath the roots. Let's get another one in. Right, that's the structure done. Now the plants. Come on. I'm going to sow into pots Blauhilde, a purple bean. And it's really important that not only do they taste really good, but also they look good. And I will put 3 in a pot, intending to plant the whole pot at the base of each of the supports. By sowing these in pots and keeping them protected from the worst of the cold, I'm ensuring that they will grow strongly and to continue to grow. If I put them out in the soil now, even if we have mild weather at this point, there is a real risk that we have a cold snap. And even if they germinate, they can stop growing at that point. These are equatorial plants. They want to grow in warm conditions. And when they stop growing, that's when the slugs and the snails get at them. Those will germinate in the greenhouse, and as soon as they're growing strongly, I'll put them in the cold frame and then harden them off. In about a month's time, I'll plant out really strong plants at the base of each support of the wigwams. Well, that's it, and I'll see you back here at Longmeadow at the same time. Till then, bye-bye. Come on. Right. Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. Now, this is the moment in spring when we go from all the subtle, gentle colours, the primroses and the lemons of early spring, which are so beautiful in their own way, to an explosion of colour, which comes from the tulips. It's as though the season just hits a conveyor belt, and off we go. Today, I will be continuing trying to rectify the tragedy of my blight-stricken box by planting a different kind of hedge.
And Rachel gets an exclusive look behind the scenes at one of the best alpine collections in the world.
Oh, wow, John, this is amazing.
It's quite impressive, isn't it?
Not just all of that colour, it's the fragrance as well.
While Carol is in Devon, meeting a man who has devoted himself to the glories of the erythronium.
These are special plants. All year, I wait for them to come up in the spring. If there's one plant that I would never want to be without, it is the erythroniums.
I've kept these alpines under cover all winter, not to protect them from the cold at all. They're as tough as old boots, but from the rain. They have very special conditions. They like really good drainage. They can withstand any amount of cold, any amount of heat, but they just hate very wet winters. And you can see that they look good in terracotta. I love the delicacy of the way that each pot creates its own little garden. And there's very, very little to do to look after them. Once you've planted them, they're almost trouble-free. Well, that's fresh in there. What you do need to do at this time of year is just check them over, see if there are any dead pieces that need taking off, if the grit has washed off in the rain, perhaps, to replace it, and that's it. You can, of course, make new plants from the sempervivums. Here, where it's very, very crowded, each one of these will make a new plant. So if I just pull off a rosette like that and just gently tease it out, there it comes. I could pot that up, it's got roots on it, and that would quickly make a new plant. And you can see that's one that was potted up last autumn. Now, of course, these are very common, familiar types. They can take the hardship of an English summer and winter. But there are many, many different types of alpines, some of which need specialist care. And Rachel has been to the Royal Botanic Garden in Edinburgh to see their huge collection of alpines.
Alpines may be tiny, but when it comes to adding colour and interest to your garden, they can certainly punch above their weight.
I grew to love alpines when I was a child because my father had a passion for them. And most weekends we went to the local garden centre and would come back with these little child-sized pots of perfection, which we then planted in our rockery. Now, that was wonderful, but I have to say, it was nothing like this, the rock garden at Edinburgh Botanic Garden. This is home to more than 5,000 plants, and it's just the tip of the iceberg.
In their natural home above the tree line, alpines withstand extreme weather conditions such as snow, ice, gale force winds, and fierce sunshine. They're small but mighty. But the one thing many of them really don't like is winter wet. So in the UK, some species can be difficult to grow unprotected. These alpine houses have been built specifically to accommodate the plants which can't easily live outdoors. John Mitchell heads up the alpine team. He's travelled the globe collecting wild specimens for their ever-evolving collection.
Oh, wow, John, this is amazing.
It's quite impressive, isn't it?
It's really impressive. And you know, the other thing is when you come in, it's not just all of that colour, it's the fragrance as well.
The scent is overpowering, and it's usually from these narcissus. You can get this sort of very sweet scent coming across.
Absolutely beautiful. And one forgets how many small bulbs come into that sort of overall alpine umbrella.
Yeah, we have the narcissus, we have muscari, we have tulips. Just now, the alpine house is at its best, and the display is absolutely spectacular.
Lovely primulas there at the end as well.
The Allioniis are spectacular. They always flower really well with us in Edinburgh.
So roughly how many plants do you think are in here?
There's about 200 plants in here, but what we do is every Friday we bring plants from the back area that are in flower into here so the public have something different to see. Behind the scenes, we have about 4,000 or 5,000.
So I'm going to get an exclusive look at those.
You are, yes.
Excellent.
But before we do that, we need to maybe take some of these plants into the back to replace them.
Right. Oh, look in here. Oh!
This is our new bulb house.
So these are all your understudies waiting for their moment in the spotlight, aren't
Yeah,
they?
anything in flower here then gets moved to the front house if we've got space, so they all get their minute of fame.
Tell me about the plants you've got in here. Where have you actually got them from?
This one here, the Fritillaria imperialis, we collected this in 2005 in Iran.
It's absolutely beautiful. And those leaves are really glossy too.
The leaves are lovely, and this lovely dark stem with the red flowers hanging quite tight to it is quite unusual, but an absolutely beautiful plant.
So where else have your plant hunting travels taken you to?
I'm mainly concentrating in Central Asia, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. We've done work in the Russian Altai, and we're going to try and get to Kazakhstan at some point as well.
Because, of course, that term alpine almost suggests that they're all European in origin. Of course, they come from...
all over the world.
Where has it come from, this obvious love of alpines?
I think I have to blame my father, because he was a student here way back in the 60s and then moved to St Andrews to build a botanic garden there. So from an early age I was brought up in botanic gardens. It was my playground. And then I got the chance to come here 30-odd years ago, and I've never looked back. I absolutely love the place.
They won't let you go now, you know.
Hopefully not.
Well, I've seen bulbs, you've whetted my appetite. What else is there?
In the other house I shall show you straight away.
Oh, this is like an alpine creche, all these tiny plants.
This is where, when plants, we take the cuttings and they've established, they come in here, and then we can grow them on, keep an eye on them. Then once they get bigger, we move them into another house.
And you grow them in this sand because?
The sand keeps the roots moist in the summertime, and you'll see everything here is in clay pots. So the clay pot is porous, keep the sand moist. The moisture goes into the clay pot and keeps the roots moist.
Presumably there are alpines that are very rare to find now in the wild. I mean, is that something that you're looking for in the Botanic Garden to help save those plants?
The Botanic Garden is always looking for rare and unusual plants for conservation. Here we have Dionysia afghanica, which just grows in certain parts of Afghanistan. This plant is probably very endangered in the wild. We also have this plant here, which is Hepatica falconeri, which was only known in Pakistan. And then in 2012, it was found in Kyrgyzstan. We managed to get permission to collect it, and now here it is growing at Edinburgh, so we can do research on it.
How exciting. I feel actually so privileged that I've been able to see some of these incredibly rare plants. I know they flower fleetingly, and they are small, but how can you not love alpines?
I totally agree.
My interest in alpines has only developed very recently. And it's as though I've suddenly realised how jewel-like they are. They are fantastic, so I must go back to Edinburgh. Any excuse to go there is fantastic, and see the collection that they've got. But they're very easy to grow at home, and I've got a nice old stone trough here. Perfect for growing them in. If you can get hold of a trough, use it. If you can't, you can use a sink. You can use any container as long as it's not plastic. Stone or terracotta is ideal because it's porous, so you don't get water collecting. Make sure there is a drainage hole, and make sure it's raised up so the water can actually run away rather than just sit underneath it. Put a crock over the hole so it doesn't get clogged up and blocked. And mix up a really, really gritty compost. I've got here a peat-free general-purpose compost mixed in equal volume with grit. Don't cheat on this. If anything, add more grit. That's the crucial thing, drainage. Now, I've got a selection of plants here, and there are so many alpines to choose from, and they're cheap. You can buy plants like this extraordinary gypsophila from Pakistan, a couple of quid. Now, I'm going to just put 2 or 3 together. We've got a little Andracaceae here. These flowers growing up almost like little tiny primulas, which comes from Asia. And then from the mountains of central Spain and Armeria. Little pin-cushion foliage and these beautiful little pink flowers that appear above it. And they'll be happy blasted by icy winds as long as they have light and aren't too wet. This sedum, which I've grown last year in a separate pot, I'd like to pot on into here. What I'm trying to get is glaucous greys and pinks mixing in. These plants are all sun lovers. So you position a trough in maximum sunshine. That's facing south. This actually is a saxifrage, cotyledon, which will flower with white flowers in summer. keeping our pink and white themes. Now you can see I've spaced it out, nothing crowding in on each other. We can always add, we've got room for them to grow. And then I'm going to dress this with grit, partly because it guarantees better drainage and also because it ties it all in together. It looks better. As long as you've got really good drainage, watering them won't harm them at all, and it's necessary to water plants in. It settles them into the compost. But they don't need much attention at all. As long as they've got the drainage and the sunshine, they'll look after themselves. And of course, you can have alpines in the very smallest of gardens, and they look good in a big garden. Every garden should have them. Now, Carol is continuing her journey around Britain, looking at the plants that have shaped our gardens and meeting the people who have devoted themselves to caring for them. This time, she's gone to Devon to meet Keith Wiley, who has a superb collection of erythroniums.
With their gentle, charming flowers set amongst handsome marbled leaves, few plants give as much pleasure as the erythronium. For me, these exquisite little flowers really epitomise the whole soul, the spirit of spring. But for all their beauty and refinement, you very seldom see erythroniums grown in gardens. It's as though people assume that something that looks so special must be difficult to grow. But one man in particular has spent many, many years of his life getting to know these plants intimately. For much of his life, Keith Wiley has been captivated by them. His work has expanded what this genus can offer all our UK gardens. Have you always been in love with these plants?
I certainly have.
What is it about them that you love so much?
I think it's partly the fact that they are actually only there in the spring. They're just so beautiful. I've never seen an ugly erythronium. To me, they're sort of epitome of grace. And each individual flower is like a sort of Chinese pagoda. You know, it's just beautiful shaped.
I mean, there are a few Eurasian species, aren't there? But the great majority of them are American.
Yeah, I think there's about 30 species, and probably 3/4 of them grow over on the Pacific Northwest of America.
And how did you feel the very first time you saw them growing in the wild?
Well, it was almost a religious moment for me when I saw erythroniums for the first time. Very, very special.
I suppose that actually seeing them growing in the wild must inspire you to try different things yourself.
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, there was one occasion where I came around in southern Oregon and we saw a whole mountainside. There was some growing underneath the shrubs, and the colour of the flowers was a perfect combination with the fading flowers above. And I thought, I took the same principle, and you actually, it happens here, look. You see these erythroniums here, they're all in their fair shades of pink, and they're matched by the pink and the white of the magnolia above.
What species is that?
This one's Erythronium revolutum.
What kind of conditions do they need?
They want the same conditions as hostas or primroses.
Woodsy kind of soil.
Exactly that, yeah. Moisture retentive, but reasonably well drained, you know, but not waterlogged.
No. Oh, look at that. That's exquisite.
The way that most species proliferate is by seed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way they do it in the wild. I planted here at the top of the slope so that it will seed down the slope and colonise this little bank here.
If you look carefully, you can see these tiny baby seedlings. How exciting!
Well, they're just like little blades of grass, aren't they? It's so easy to weed out.
Yes.
And some of them have still got their little seed pods on the top.
So when you come across these plants in the wild, are there lots of natural hybrids between them?
No, they don't really naturally hybridise because they grow at such widely spaced distances. I mean, they're growing 50, 60 miles apart, so they've got no chance.
Right.
Unless you've got long-distance bees.
Yeah. They don't fly that far, do they?
No. 30, 40 years ago, there was only 5 or 6 species in our gardens. And then in the last 30 years, lots more species have come in, and the bees have had a chance to actually do their business, and we've got lots of different hybrids starting to arrive. The big difference between species and hybrids is that species basically will come from seed, whereas a hybrid, you have to divide them.
Yeah. And what are the sort of qualities you go for?
Well, I think the real beauty about hybrids is their flower power.
Yeah.
They can make big, solid batches of colour. This one here, right in front of me, is one I named after my sister, Jenny. It produces a lovely, quite late in the season, patch of this lovely pink with these really inside this really quite delicate markings. That's one of the real beauties of erythroniums, is the beauty of just turning their faces up.
How many have you grown?
I've probably named about 15 or 20 so far, and I'd say we're trialling another 100 or so to see.
People are going to be so enamoured of this plant now that they've seen it growing in your garden. But how do you get hold of erythroniums? They're not the most sort of common of things, are they, in garden centres and nurseries?
They're not really sort of lending themselves to mass production, really. So perhaps more realistically, the best way is to order them from specialist or reputable firms who will send them, lift them at the right time, pack them in the right way, and send them off to you at the correct time.
Which is what, August,
It's probably
September?
going to be sometime in late summer, I think, right through into very early autumn. I mean, if there's one plant that I would want to grow and would never want to be without, it is the erythroniums. All year, I wait for them to come up in the spring. They're so special. And on a day like this, I mean, what could be better, really?
No, it was obviously meant to be,
It
wasn't
was.
it?
Obviously, Keith's erythroniums are extraordinary, but I find even just having a few here in the garden transforms it. Because erythroniums have a mixture of genuine exotica, but also a kind of easy elegance that almost no other plant can provide. A month or so ago, we began the process of taking out box hedges that had been afflicted with box blight. This was a major change to the garden, and the box blight is still present. It's killed back great lengths of hedge, and we may well have to take it all out. But for the moment, we're stopping where we are. Now, I can't put box black in because the fungal spores that cause the blight can remain in the soil for 5 or even more years. So what I'm going to do is plant a yew hedge. Now, yew, that's Taxus baccata, is normally used in a garden as a big backdrop. But what I want to do is grow it as a low hedge. So this is a fairly new development on how to use yew. Now, it doesn't matter whether you want to grow a 20-foot yew hedge or a 3-foot one, or to be honest, any hedge. There are certain things you need to do to prepare it. This has had the roots of the old hedge taken out, and it's been dug over thoroughly and grit added. It is important when you're preparing for a hedge to get a nice wide, clean area. Don't just dig one spade's width. Clear the ground, if need be, 1 metre wide. There's plenty of room and soil for this to grow into. Yew needs good drainage, and it hates sitting in wet, cold soil. So on our fairly heavy soil in this wet part of the country, we always add grit for any kind of tree or shrubby planting, but particularly for yew. If your soil is wet and cold, you must add drainage. The next step is to make sure it's straight. Get or make a line, which is simply string attached to sticks. Set it back from the edge of the path or the border, because, of course, any hedge will grow wide, however much you cut it. Rule of thumb, you need to allow about 3 foot width for it. I've made myself a measuring stick. So plant that along there. If we put the first one just a little away from the edge, like that, and plant along, I'm going to put these at 18-inch centres. If that looks frighteningly far apart, stick with it. These plants will grow nice and strong and very quickly meet to join a hedge. Also, yew is quite expensive. Plant them with enough room for the roots to develop, and you'll get a much healthier, stronger hedge. So that's plenty close enough. Tell you what, I can take some clothes off. Don't be tempted to plant in a saucer, or in terms of a hedge, a groove, because the water will collect. If anything, plant them on a ridge. In fact, the soil here, you can see, mounds up above the ground level. So that, in effect, is a ridge. But if in doubt, mound the soil up and make sure the roots are never sitting in wet, cold water. Yew takes the first year to establish. So I wouldn't expect any significant growth on these in 2014. But next spring, next May, June, they will really start to put on new growth. And most of that initially will be upwards, but they'll start to thicken out. And you just keep the sides this way trimmed, and that will encourage lateral growth. And they will meet and join up in about the second or third year. And I would expect this to be a hedge that I can top off at 3 foot, because we won't cut the top until it reaches its ultimate height, after 4 or 5 years, because yew grows about 6 inches a year. Even though I've said that yew hate sitting in water, that doesn't mean to say that they don't need water. They do. They need watering once a month, really good soak once a month, unless it doesn't rain. And if it doesn't rain for a week, water them. And you do this for the first summer. Take it through till October, and thereafter, they can look after themselves. When I've watered them thoroughly, they must be mulched to keep the moisture in and keep the weeds down. Now, you may not be planting hedges this weekend, but here are some other things you can be getting on with.
If you're raising your sweet peas from seed, and they're now growing strongly, like these, which I sowed in March, it's time to pinch out their growing tips. This will encourage a bushier plant, and then when you plant it out next month, will give you more flowers throughout the growing season. At this time of year, herbaceous perennials are growing very fast, and this makes them vulnerable to damage from any bad weather. So it's important to stake them before they need it. I like to use homemade wire supports, but twine and canes or prunings from shrubs will do the job just as well. Whatever you use, gently support and prop the plant up so it looks as natural as possible without lashing them into a harsh straitjacket. Courgettes are one of my favorite summer vegetables, and now is the time to sow them. I use small pots and sow 2 seeds per pot, and will weed out one of them if they both germinate. Put them somewhere warm, water them, and leave them to grow. If the weather stays cold, you may have to pot them on again. But don't plant them out until the nights have warmed up, and then they will grow away strongly.
I don't think I've ever known such a good year for purple sprouting broccoli, which is a treat. So much nicer than the great clumpy broccoli that you buy or get served. It's the delicacy of purple sprouting broccoli, and it's going to seed really fast. There's still another couple of pickings, but any warm weather and it's just shooting into flower. So those will come out over the next week and be followed in rotation by root crops, carrots, parsnips, and there's some space here, and I want to put some parsnips in now. Loosen the soil, rake it over so it's a reasonable tilth. And then don't tread on the soil if you can help it. Now, I just use the side of my hand to make a furrow. Just run down either side. Now, the seeds are flat and quite good size, but they're very light, so it's easy to get too many in together. So, a decent-sized parsnip wants to be spaced about 3 or 4 inches apart. And there are 2 ways you can do this. You can either sow them as thinly as you can, and then thin them more later, or sow 2 or 3 seeds in little clumps about 4 inches apart. Parsnips are slow to germinate. This can mean you lose them. You get weeds growing up, you don't quite know where to weed because there's no sign of the parsnips for up to about 5 weeks. So what I do is sow radish in the same drill. And the radish germinate very quickly, in a couple of weeks at the most. And they're ready to eat after about 4 weeks. So from 4 to 8 weeks, you harvest the radish, by which time the parsnip have germinated and starting to grow. Clear the last of radish away and you have a line of parsnips in their wake. Neither affects the other's growth rate, but you use the space to twice the effect. And also, apart from anything else, it just marks the row. So I've got a cherry bell here. Sprinkle the radish in. I'll fit another couple of rows of parsnip and radish in this little plot. But that's all we've got time for this week. Bye-bye. Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. You know, you can study horticulture for years, you can become as experienced as you like, but you very rarely will make anything more pleasing than a mown path through long grass, particularly at this time of year. I love that contrast. It's a beautifully simple, elegant line. This week, Carol returns to help our budding gardeners Dan and Dominique create a cottage garden border from scratch.
What do you want this border to be?
Colour and just craziness, everything, you know, full, cram-packed would be brilliant.
Sophie Rayworth will be at Chelsea Flower Show with me for the first time this year, and she takes us around the garden that she grew up in.
This is what I love, and it makes me feel very at home. So the alliums, I've got hydrangea annabelles, I've got climbing roses, euphorbia.
Oh, well, you're coming on.
Oh, coming on, you know. You've got it all, and I'm trying to keep up with you, Mum.
And I shall be planting up my sweet peas, and talking sweet, I'll also be sowing sweet corn for a harvest later on in summer. Come on, Ash. I love the change at this time of year as the coppice goes into the next phase. And you've had all the early flowers, and now this. It does prove to me that that combination that you get here in the copse of trees, shrubs, and flowers is perfect for gardening. You can do it anywhere. And they just work well together in this dappled light. As you move further into the copse, the planting changes. It's a bit more shady, and actually a little damper too. So primroses, violets, the wood anemones and bluebells make this intense tapestry of a border. And most of it has finished now. And as the leaves get thicker, they'll go dormant. And this is the perfect moment to divide primroses. After they finish flowering, primroses develop this really vibrant foliage, which obviously feeds back into the roots. So if you dig it up now and replant it, you'll capture all that growth. Right, so we just dig around with a trowel, taking out this clump. I don't mind that. Now, here we are, it's perfect. You can see that we've got plenty of material to divide there and a good root system. So I'm going to chop it initially in there like that. There we go. Now already I've got myself a couple of plants, but if I put that down, I can now break it up into a whole number of plants. You can be quite tough about this. There we are. And I could take it down even further if I wanted to. We'll pull, there we go, even more. And this way, you can start to build your own stock, because in 2 years' time, that will develop a clump as big as the original one that I've taken out. And that then can be lifted and divided. And very quickly, you can go from buying one large primrose to having literally hundreds. Pop that down. I've got a good spot here. It's a bare patch where there was a pile of wood. And you can see it at the base of a tree, but it's got some light coming in. And to establish a clump, to fill an area like this, you want to plant 4 or 5 separate plants about 6 inches to a foot apart, and they will fill in the gaps. Those leaves are a little bit wonky and bashed, so what I'll do is quite happily take these back, right back like that. That won't do it any harm at all, and we'll get new leaves growing from the base. So we'll plant this one in here, just like that. With a good soak, these will grow almost instantly and spread the established theme of this area of the garden. There's nothing new going on here. I'm just tinkering with it to keep it alive and keep it moving. Now, this is very different to what Carol has been doing with our first-time gardeners, Dominique and Dan. She's been visiting them regularly throughout this year and will continue to do so right through the growing season as they start to create their garden. This week, she's helping them to plant up a cottage garden border.
Spring has definitely sprung in Gloucestershire, and Dan and Dom have been making the most of it. At the beginning of the year, they created a plan of their dream family garden, and after loads of hard work, it's starting to take shape. The structural plants Dom and I planted at Easter are settling in well, and since then, they've been busy collecting perennial plants from neighbours and friends. They've laid some more lawn, and after much discussion, we've also come up with a low-cost but high-impact solution for the patch of earth we're yet to tackle, next to the lawn. It really is beginning to look like a garden, isn't it? Look at that blossom! That's marvellous. And I love this grass.
I just think it's great how we have a continuous sweep coming around. It brings the two sides together, and then that gives us the opportunity to have a kind of a continuous border as well.
What do you want this border to be?
Colour and just craziness, everything, you know, full, cram-packed would be brilliant.
So what you're after really is what I suppose people call a cottage garden. And one of the great things about cottage gardening is you grab stuff from everywhere, you beg, borrow and steal, and you've been doing just that, haven't you?
We have, yeah. We've collected a few little bits.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Shall we have a look?
Yeah, down in the
come
nursery
see.
bed. Yeah.
I think this looks splendid. All this stuff you've been given.
Yeah.
I think you've got a marvellous selection, I really do. You've got stilbees, meadow sweet, fabulous sedum, which is going to be one of your best autumnal wildlife plants.
Right.
Butterflies love it. You've got daylily over there. Now, what shall we start with? This is rudbeckia. And you've got quite a nice lot of that, so we ought to be able to do something rather exciting with that. What else do you like?
You're a fan of this
Yeah,
one,
I really like this one.
It's a thalictrum. It's probably one called aquilegifolium. It will end up being really tall. Let's have that phlox, don't you think?
Yeah.
Because that's such a cottagey garden thing, isn't it? Phlox delivery, fantastic. Just the job. Should we have a little holding area down here?
In the middle?
Yeah. First things first, if we started with the rudbeckia, because it's such a stalwart, big daisies with a black centre, One of its common names is black-eyed Susan. So why don't we start this as a great big sort of swathe over here? You don't just want a plant in one place, even if it's a swathe. You want to repeat it somewhere else. So you establish this whole sort of rhythm. And
Shall
if you
I continue it around then?
Yeah, I think so. Somewhere over there. Now, if you plant them just a few inches apart, but we break these clumps up a bit, you'll find by the end of the summer, hopefully, you'll have a great big chunk of yellow. Now, this Thalictrum sustained slight injury over here.
I'm not going to take sole responsibility for that, but maybe.
But I think the whole thing about tall plants is everybody wants to put them at the back and to have this sort of staggered look. I think we ought to have them right at the front here. Somewhere like this. Because then you create these little recesses, you know, these little secret places. Now, about 18 inches, foot 18 inches apart, something like that. So, just 2 flocks, one each.
OK.
Cheers.
I think she gave you the smaller one there.
Yeah, I think so.
No fool.
Maybe, if they come up here, you can have one either side. So you establish that sort of link between one side and the other. You can buy a few more from the garden centre, just so you establish this kind of rhythm. Come on, then.
More plants.
Tools and plants, thank you very much. We're setting all the plants out on the soil to make sure the design will work before we start getting them planted. By autumn, these plants will have established themselves and be ripe for propagation, allowing Dan and Dom to fill up the rest of their borders. Give them a good old soaking in. Are you pleased?
Looks amazing.
Until then, we've come up with a beautiful, cost-effective solution to create big impact this summer. What about this area now?
We've got these guys. The mini meadow.
A mini meadow. Instead of being a wildflower mix, which would be great if you had poor, dry soil, it's a mix of annual flowers that will give you the same sort of billowy, soft, romantic effect, but will love growing in this kind of soil. Right now is the time to sow it. And I think you ought to use this time-honoured method. So actually putting some of your seed into dry sand. For 2 reasons. A, you can see exactly where you've sown. And B, it distributes the seed more evenly. Yeah, lovely. With this area now set up for summer, it's time to turn our attention to the veg plot. Because next time I'm here, we're going to fill them and create a plot that should keep them in veg throughout the year.
It's nice to see people catch the enthusiasm that gardening gives you, like getting the bug. Now, these are streptocarpus that I bought at Malvern. Now, I've never grown these before, so I thought I'd give them a go. I've seen them growing in the wild in the Drakensberg Mountains in South Africa. And I've seen them growing in rocky, wooded ravines with the mountain streams pouring down and the streptocarpus growing on the banks. So they like shade, they like warmth, they like it moist but not wet. They can be quite tricky. And the one thing that absolutely is not right for them is to grow them in a hot, dry greenhouse. So if I grow them in here, I will put them underneath the staging. And when you water them, you don't want to water directly onto the leaves, but either just into the compost or underneath. And they want to be fairly pot-bound. If you put them into too big a pot, you'll just get masses of leaves and no flower. This is a variety called crystal ice, which flowers more than most varieties and will go on flowering. As long as you keep deadheading it, new flowers will be produced. Now, I want to make new plants because you can take cuttings from them quite easily. And you do it by taking leaf cuttings. And this plant here, the leaves are strong, standing well, and that's perfect cutting material. Leaf cuttings, like root cuttings, need a well-drained compost. So I'm going to use a seed mix which has got lots of vermiculite in it. And I'm going to do the cuttings in 3 different ways. As much as anything else, to compare how they get on. The easiest way to take a leaf cutting from these is simply to take a single leaf. That one will do. We'll cut that off at the base, like that, and just cut about 2/3 down with a sharp knife and stick it in compost and leave it like that. The second way to take cuttings from these is slightly more complex and slightly more risky. So we will take another cutting. Let's take this big one here, like that, and cut it into sections across the leaf. Now, it's important you remember which way up they are, because they have to go into the compost, the right way up, so to speak. Put that in like that. And what this will do is encourage new little plants to grow from the base. That will give us more plants from one leaf, but it's going to be a greater risk of the plants not surviving the cutting process. An even riskier way to do it, but if it works, much more successful, is this. We will take another whole leaf, and I wouldn't want to take any more than leaves than this from the plant. And then putting it on the ground, I'm going to cut out that main rib. And to do this, you do need a very sharp knife. You don't want to tear it. Now, these can be put in on their side along the cut edge. If that works, and there's about a 50% chance, we'll get new plants growing all the way along the length, which can then be cut free and potted on. Whichever method you use, you do need to put it somewhere warm, but not exposed to too much sun, otherwise it will scorch. And then water the soil well, and you'll know that it's taken because you'll start to see the new growth. Right, if those cuttings take, the young plant should be flowering within 21 weeks. So if you can get it to happen, it's a great way of producing new plants. And we're producing new plants every day now. And by the end of the year, we will have got thousands out of this one small greenhouse. That takes quite a lot of organisation, but it's a very cheap way of making the garden look fantastic. However, one thing is for sure. You can't just grow plants in the protection of a greenhouse and then take them and put them straight out into the garden. And it is a good idea, if you're growing anything in a greenhouse that is intended to go in the garden, to harden it off gradually. And that means for at least a week, and preferably by degrees. So pretty good protection, and then a little bit more exposed. And finally, when it's ready to go out, it's properly acclimatized. And this applies if you buy plants too. If you go to a flower show or a garden centre and you see a marvellous plant, the chances are that it's been mollycoddled and protected, so it does look marvellous. So a really good piece of advice is to, when you buy a new plant, put it somewhere fairly protected, out of the wind, out of the worst of the sunshine, let it sit for a week, then plant it out. Now, I've got sweet peas here, which have gone from seed to cold frames to this standing out bed, and now are completely ready to be planted out. Sweet peas like rich soil, plenty of moisture, so before you plant, it's a good idea to put lots of compost or soil improver beneath the wigwam, if you're planting them on a wigwam, or on a line if you're planting them against a fence. And they don't need unbroken sunlight. As long as they get sun for half the day, that's absolutely fine. I plant a pot at a time, so I've sown 3 seeds, 3 plants have grown, knock it out the pot, and the whole thing goes at the base of a support. And when these are planted, they will need a good soak, and they need to be soaked regularly. So if it hasn't rained, these should be watered weekly and not let them dry out. Sweet peas are communal garden plants, I suppose. They're absolutely lovely, and none the worse for being in millions of gardens across the country. Now, next week is Chelsea Flower Show. And for anyone exhibiting, it's the absolute peak of the year, and for every gardener, it's one of the major highlights. I'll be there along with Joe and Carol and Rachel, and for the first time, Sophie Rayworth. Now, Sophie was brought up in Twickenham in a beautiful garden.
This is where I grew up. We came here when I was 6 years old, and my parents still live here, and I come here all the time. My parents have always been really keen gardeners, as were their parents, my grandparents. And gardening and plants and horticulture has always been so central to my family, to my parents, and it's just something that has run through the generations, I suppose. When my parents bought this house back in the 1970s, it needed a huge amount doing to it, and there was a beautiful space here, but very little in it, and they could see the possibilities that this garden held. This is my favourite part of the garden. So much of my childhood happened here on this lawn. I mean, everything from revising from my O-levels, lying on the lawn here. We had my childhood birthday parties here. When we were kids, my sister and I used to have tea out here with my mum. It was a wonderful space that was created by my parents for our family. It's looking amazing, Mum.
Just doing a bit of staking.
People often say it's your mother's garden, but actually it's not at all. My dad is the absolutely backbone to it. He did the beautiful lawns and he planted all the hedges, and my mum is in charge of the plants and the flowers.
Flowers at the moment I really love are that poppy there, medallion, is fantastic, and I think the plant has got at least 20 buds on it. And the tulips have been wonderful, spring green. Look at those camasias there, they're beautiful. And also there's the white hesperus. Now that is a lovely scented plant, and that's gorgeous.
And the roses, of course, which are about to come out.
Yes,
in this
they
garden,
are.
when the
Yes.
roses come out,
Yes.
is spectacular. My garden is, compared to this, miniature, but the flowers I have in my garden, I have to say I've slightly copied my parents. I mean,
Well, you do. You go and see a garden and, you get ideas from other gardens.
And also,
That's the whole
this is what I've grown up with, so this is what I love, and it makes me feel very at home. So the alliums, I've got hydrangea annabelles, I've got climbing roses, euphorbia.
Oh, well, you're coming on.
Oh, coming on, you know. You've got it all. I'm trying to keep up with you, Mum. It's beautiful. This is the knot garden, but it's one of the parts of the garden that has changed the most over the years. When we first moved here, when I was 6, we had a Wendy house and a swing.
They weren't very pretty, though, so I'm afraid we burnt the Wendy house and the swing was got rid of.
Yes, we weren't very pleased about that.
No. Then I kept bees, and I had 2 huge hives here, and we used to produce over 200 pounds of honey.
And we took it very seriously. Mum and I used to go to beekeeping classes around the corner in Twickenham.
Yes, and there was a film made about us on Nationwide, and there's a very funny shot of Sophie standing there with long, lank hair.
That was my first appearance on television, on Nationwide, with Mum and her bees looking very gawky, standing right here in this garden, yeah. This wisteria is fantastic. It's the first thing you see when you walk into the gates here. And it was here when we first moved here in the 1970s. It's very much my dad's thing, though. And it's kind of grown up and it's come down again because Dad cuts it back. It used to reach the top of the house, didn't it?
Well, wisteria grows like mad. And I have to prune it at least 3 times, sometimes 4 times a year, in order to keep it trim. And the last pruning, which is maybe in January, February, where you cut it back to 2 buds, and that's what makes it flower, and that's the most important thing.
But the thing that my dad is most proud of is this, the Cotoneaster Queen of Carpets understep planting, which Dad reckons is probably the longest in the country. Is that right?
I think it is right. It's 20 metres, 2 lots of 10 metres, and it is the most prostrate Cotoneaster that there is, I believe. It lies absolutely flat, and it's gone along the York stone gaps that we have here.
That's your mission, isn't it, to cover the whole here, the
My
whole of the
mission is
sunken
to
garden?
cover the whole thing.
The added bonus is that it has a pretty white flood.
and red berries in the autumn.
It's got a hole here, Dad, though. I'm a bit worried about the hole.
I've just seen that hole.
It's just something I have grown up with. I have a really strong affinity to, and it's a sort of family passion and something that Mum and Dad have very much passed on to me. I'm really excited to be part of the Chelsea team this year. I've been there many times in the past as a visitor, but I've never spent, you know, a substantial amount of time there. And I'm really looking forward to talking to all the garden designers and the plant growers and taking away some tips and ideas from my own garden.
Now, how about this? This is Viburnum plicatum marisii. It's a fairly common shrub, but uncommonly beautiful, and this is its supreme moment. And as well as this fabulous flower in spring, they have some of the best autumn-coloured foliage that you could possibly find. Now, you may not have a Viburnum plicatum, but here are some jobs that we can all be doing this weekend. Although you should not be cutting hedges at this time of year because it will disturb nesting birds, it is a good time to lightly trim the vertical ends of hedges. It's only a small job, but it has a really big impact on tidying up the garden. Just as trimming the vertical ends of a hedge tidies things up, so does keeping the edges of grass neat. If there is already an established edge, then you can just trim it with edging shears, although they must be really sharp. If, however, you've got matted growth, use a board and cut into the growth to establish a neat line. And then in future, you can just trim it with the shears. If you grow strawberries, your fruit will be forming and even ripening, so now is a good moment to mulch them. Straw is traditionally used, but anything that keeps the fruit clean and dry will do the job. And while you're about it, it's a good idea to cloche some of the plants. This will encourage them to ripen earlier and spread your harvest. But keep the ends of the cloches open to ensure good ventilation. I'm sowing some sweet corn. And sweet corn is one of these vegetables that is tender, and it's no good sowing it in cold conditions. If it does grow, it won't grow very well. And we can't reliably reckon on warm conditions for another few weeks yet. So I'm going to raise it in the greenhouse. These will be ready to pot on as soon as they start growing and get a decent root system. And then by the time I've hardened them off, they should be about a foot or so high. By that time, it'll be, the middle of June. The nights will be warm and they will grow fast and they'll be ready to harvest around about August time or even September. And homegrown sweet corn is just so much sweeter than anything you can buy. It's a fantastic treat. A buttery cob with the juices smeared over your face is good fun. Now that can go into the greenhouse. Now I'll water that in, and I've put it on the heated bench because sweet corn needs heat to germinate. And it's great to have that facility. And in fact, I've got a letter here from Sharon Camp asking me what warming bench I've got and how does it work. Well, I can tell you, Sharon, I bought that bench for about £700 16 years ago. And it's essentially just a deep tray filled with grit with cables, like an electric blanket, running through it. It's quite an investment, but it's about the best thing I've ever bought in this garden because it saved me tens of thousands of pounds, really. And the secret of successful propagation is controlling light, water, and heat. Now, a much cheaper way to do that is to get a heated mat. I've got one under here, and For about £100, you can get a decent size, and it gives you that gentle heat underneath. You'll find that your seeds will germinate quicker and better, cuttings will take better, and you'll very, very quickly make that money back. I would say it's well worth the investment of some kind of gentle bottom heat for propagation. Well, that's it for today. Bye-bye.